Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. All right, folks, Big Paul here today with Coach Nick Crane. What's up, dude?
Not much. Good to see you again. Thanks for inviting me on. Pretty stoked to be here. It's going to be fun.
Well, Coach Crane and I met on the 1D podcast, and I figured I'd have him on for an episode of Coach Talk. We're going to talk through what we see with people, talk about contest prep, talk about fat loss. It's that time of the year where everybody's getting shredded, and we can also discuss all the fuckery in bodybuilding too. So there's a lot of that going on right now as well. So how have things been going with you, man?
It's been going good. Just, busy as always. We're officially getting set up in the Fort Worth area a little bit more. So we're digging in, picking up more people, getting our name out there a lot more. And it's been really interesting. It's different when you're in Central Texas and there's just a lack of people that are genuinely interested. Whereas you come up to the Metroplex and you walk down the street and someone sees your arms and they're like, "Hey bro, can I get in shape? What do you do?" And it's like, it's just instant. And you're like, you're like, yeah. And they're like, well, how do I get like you? And I made a post the other day. I was like, well, I just started asking people. I was like, what are you willing to sacrifice? And they're like, what? And I'm like, well, yeah, you want to give up TV? You want to give up fast food? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then you're not going to look like me. Like, I'm sorry.
No, a lot of people don't want to do the work. I'll get it all the time. I'll get people that sign up and they think there's some secret sauce that I'm going to tell them. And I literally all the time I'll get 3 or 4 weeks in and I'll get people who are like, I'm disappointed. And I'm like, what are you disappointed at? They're like, well, I just expected more. And I'm like, what did you expect? That I was just going to tell you some secret steroid to take to get ripped in 30 days. It doesn't work that way, man.
Yeah, there's no magic pill. It's, I've been hearing for years and also seeing too, it's no matter what you take, it's 10% of the equation. Like if they're not going to sleep, if they're not going to eat, if they're not going to train, and they're not going to train effectively, that's another thing. If you're not going to train effectively, then you're going to get nothing out of gear protocol, plain and simple,
Oh, I see it all the time. I've had dudes, God, I gotta be careful what I say, but I had a guy come to me that was running grams of gear and he didn't even look like he lifted weights. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
He's just a water sack.
Yeah, he didn't even look like he lifted, man. I was like, I'm like, either your shit's fake or something you're doing is completely wrong.
Right.
But it's almost honestly the part that I see, and I'm sure you see the same, that I can make instant change with people is getting their diet fixed.
Yep. About 10 pounds is my average, just getting someone on a clean diet. You do that. And it's the water weight and inflammation. And I tell them all the time, I'm honest. I'm like, it's probably not fat. It's probably straight inflammation and water. And they're like, oh my God, I've lost 10 pounds. And I'm like, it's going to slow down. And then the next week they're like, why didn't I lose as much? And I'm like, I just told you. I already told you.
Yeah. I mean, I usually break the math out for people initially, when I get them on, let them know, hey, you're going to have that water weight loss, but we can sort of predict the fat loss. I mean, a pound of fat is roughly 3,500 calories. I think it's 3,480 or some shit like that. But, so if we want to lose 2 pounds a week of fat, we need to be in a 1,000 calorie a day deficit. That's what it works out to. We can create that deficit with eating less, doing more exercise, increasing energy expenditure, and potentially using PEDs to give a little bit of a boost. But once again, like you said, I think fat burners at most are going to be a 10% difference.
Yeah,
everybody's looking for a fat burner that's going to, like Clen and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, if you do the math on it, man, let's say you have a 2,500 calorie BMR and Clen, that Clen ephedra ECY stack that you use maybe gives you a 10% boost. You're talking about 250 calories a day. It's not even a chocolate chip cookie.
Right. Exactly. And it's is that worth it? What do your health metrics look like? And they're like, no, I got to do it. I heard I got to take Clen. And you're like, okay, how does your heart look? You know?
I mean, it's easier. Not just that, man. If you want to throw the health aside, it's just easier to eat one less cookie.
Right. Yeah. Right. Like that's the funny thing too, is the adherence. Like, and we all know, we've all been competing. We all know once you get steep into those, I can't tell you, I think it was my second show. And I might've already talked about this the last podcast. I'm not sure, but I was like down in the dumps, and we had cut way too hard. And it was just overall, it was just a mess. And I was so depleted. It was like I was cramping in my sleep. You know, he put in like diuretics a week beforehand. Terrible
Oh
ideas.
man.
All terrible ideas. Oh yeah, it was just god awful. So I'm starving, and I was being proactive, and I had picked up, he wanted me to have the honey buns for the show. He's like, you're going to have sugar. You're going to have this. This is how you're going to, again, totally wrong. Folks, don't do this. Okay. This is a bad coaching experience when I was very young into bodybuilding. So I was so hungry. I ate the entire box of honey buns in one sitting. And it was like, man, it's like I blacked out. I took one bite, and then it was just like, and the whole thing was just gone. So
I mean, that's what happens when you're depleted like that, man. And the Grayling monster takes over.
Oh yeah, like you even sniff it, and you're like, "Oh, game over." You're gonna
my coach Justin Harris, he says that Grayling always wins.
Yes, it does. It's hard to fight. What do you think about Mate Tea? Have you ever messed around with that?
No, I never have, man.
You should. It's really nice. So it's a GLP-1 agonist, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thing.
So it works.
Oh,
it works like semaglutide.
Yeah. Except it's natural. You can get it in a tea. It's super. Instead of paying, thousands of dollars for semaglutide, or wherever you're going to get your semaglutide, or what's the other one, like Tesifin or something like that. That's the other pretty big GLP agonist. But you can get Mate tea, and it comes in like this nice little cup. You put your little leaves in there. You get like a nice little straw with it too, because it's like a loose leaf tea, and you just sip on that 2 to 3 times during the day, and it's a game changer. Like you're pretty satiated for the entire.
I had no idea, man. I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
I've run, we'll talk about the GLP-1 agonists, but I've run in the past, have run metformin, which is sort of an unconventional way to go. And metformin absolutely buries your appetite. It keeps your appetite, keeps insulin sensitivity high, and actually has some longevity benefits as well.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so I've used metformin on contest prep, which is sort of the opposite of what most people do. But I don't, I don't recommend it for everyone.
Do you use it in the off season at all?
Yeah, I usually run it year round. To be honest with you,
me too.
I run a lot of HGH, so I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, somewhere in the 6 to 8 unit range. But to kind of keep my insulin sensitivity in check, I run that and berberine both.
Yeah. Well, metformin itself is just the French lilac. It's a flower. Everyone looks at it like it's a medication, and really the patent is the only thing that makes it the medication. It should be a supplement. Like it really should be a supplement.
Yeah, it should be a supplement. Yeah, it is. It is an organic substance. The only downside with it is some people can get some pretty bad gastric distress from it.
Yeah.
I've not had that
either.
I've
heard of it.
The metformin shits.
Yeah, like I had one guy literally call it the shit pills. Like he was like, "Yeah, I've been taking the shit pills now for a week and a half," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I think it might just be guys that are bigger, like guys who are like. So if you have someone who's actually clinically pre-diabetic, right? And I figure that's the worst time you see it, because they have so much free radicals in their bloodstream that it's literally purging that. And I think that's what's happening is for the first couple months, they're just literally purging all that excess sugar out of their blood. And that's what happens.
Yeah. And I've heard that it reforms the gut biome as well too. I don't know a whole lot about that. I could be completely speaking out of my butt right now, but I've heard
right. I haven't heard too much about it either, so we'll not touch that one. We'll let the geeks dig into that one.
Believe me, the comment section, they love to point out when I say something wrong.
Oh, here they come. we just did it. You just provoked them. Here they
I don't even argue, man. I'm just like, yeah, you're right. I misspoke. Sorry about that.
That's
I'm
awesome.
just some dummy bodybuilder on the internet that has a YouTube channel. Don't believe what I say.
Man. Well, it's like what's their credentials? Like where are you coming from?
Oh, they'll research
just because you read it on a Reddit
man.
post. Reddit is not research, folks. It's not.
Generally, if you got your bodybuilding advice on Reddit, it's probably wrong.
Generally, yes.
That's been my experience. Hey, bro, what do you think about this Debo? blah 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 cycle, D-ball trend cycle. I'm like, nope. I don't know
Please
where
don't.
you got that. Where you got
Yeah.
that from? So the GLP-1 agonists, semaglutides just seem Ozempic, I guess, here in the U.S., but it seems to be all the rage right now. There's a shortage of it. If you're diabetic, you can't even get it.
Because it's being marketed as a weight loss drug. You know, like this is going to be a tangent if we go down this one because I have strong feelings about this.
I've never used it, so I don't really have
your
any
channel
experience
banned
with
if
it.
I talk about it.
No, go for it, man. I like living life on the edge.
Right, exactly. So I thoroughly disagree with how it's being marketed. I think that look, you know the fact that it's being marketed to kids, you know, like they're pushing it on children. They're like, oh yeah, 12 and 15-year-olds with metabolic dysfunction. Cool. Yeah, well, you know, they're just trying to make a buck, and they're like, this is an effective medication, and all it does, and everyone thinks it's a miracle fat loss agent. No, it just controls and regulates your blood glucose and stops ghrelin. Yeah. That's it. That's it. It stops you from eating. It helps you with impulse control, and they're making a killing off of it. You know, it's incredible. I mean, hey, good for them as far as business goes, but at the same time, like, you know, I got kids. Don't push it on kids. Like,
kids shouldn't be on it. I personally have, believe me, I have no qualms about trying shit, man. My ethics are a little marginal when it comes to trying stuff. I've tried everything, but I have not tried it.
Well, you don't know until you try.
Yeah, you don't know until you try. I have had some clients, some people that are pretty obese that have issues that have been prescribed from their doctors, and I've seen some pretty dramatic results with people that have. Yeah. I speculate that there is some, and I've read some research on it, that there's some dysfunction with ghrelin and leptin in people that are morbidly obese. I have seen, and that's one thing that metformin does, from what I understand, is that that a lot of times morbidly obese people have leptin resistance, and that metformin actually improves leptin sensitivity. So
right.
Yeah. So you don't the people that have that are morbidly obese have dysfunctional leptin signaling, from what I understand.
Correct. So it's helpful, right? And again, I've never personally used it. I'm the willpower guy. I'm like, I'll use mate tea, but at this, like me, I'm like, I'm just gonna choke down some celery and maybe eat a couple pickles. You know?
Yeah,
like,
I mean that's me too. I've never been able to not tough through a diet. I've messed up, but I mean, like,
oh yeah.
But man, usually once I'm locked in, and I'm a fat boy at heart, you know. So I'm like, I'm sort of the tough guy, you know. I'll die before I give up.
Yeah, me too.
But not everybody's wired that way, man.
I know. And you can see that with the clients as well. Like even people you work with where you're like, you just can't connect the dots. You're like, why can't I get through to them? And you're like, it's not that hard. And then they're just like cheat meal, binge, cheat meal, binge. And you're like, what is going on? You know, and this is even bodybuilders too. Sometimes they just cannot hold themselves together. And then, you know, I tell them, especially the competitors, I'm like, you're going to regret this in the off season. They're just like all over the place. And I'm like, don't. You have a prescription diet plan. This is what you're going to follow. And then they show up and they're like, all right, we got to get ready for a show in, 20 weeks. And they're obese. And I'm like, dude, I told you. Like I've been telling and preaching the past several months. And then they get on stage and they're like, oh, coach, you were right. That was really hard. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I told you months ago. It's like, stop being fat.
I know Justin always tells me, he's like, you can have whatever you want in the off season. It's just more cardio when you do prep.
Yep. It just makes it harder. That's all it is.
Last year, my last prep, that was the leanest I'd stayed in the off season. And it was a breeze, man. I'm like, why hadn't I been doing this the whole time? Like I don't know. I haven't been as good this year, but I stayed lean. I had abs going into prep. I was probably 10-12% body fat at most.
Yeah.
And it was a breeze, man. It was the easiest prep I've ever done.
Yeah, I think that's the sweet spot for sure. Is that like 12 to 13 range, because they even have the studies to back it up where it's like, look, that's where you're kind of in that a maximum zone for anabolic activity, right? You're in a healthy spot. Your organs are in a healthy spot. Your body's in a healthy spot. As long as you maintain that, you're eating enough, but it's kind of like balancing each other out. Like granted, you're still going to be putting on some body fat, but you know how it is, even at the higher levels, it's like, you really aren't going to put on too much body fat if you have enough muscle because your muscles need so many calories,
Yeah. Well, and people that want to take PEDs actually work better when you're leaner.
Correct.
You have less estrogen conversion, and you create a more anabolic environment. Your testosterone that you take is going to work better when you're leaner.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting, it's the permabulkers, the power lifters, they crack me up. Like, I'm like, you ever thought about maybe getting a little leaner? Maybe. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to diet.
Big belly, like, big bench.
I mean, hey, I'm not going to knock them because they're obviously stronger than I am. So I'm not going to really sit here.
Dude, we have a pretty awesome powerlifting community at my gym. There's a bunch of pros in there, but I always laugh and I like to watch the powerlifters work out. It's like the time they take between sets, I'm like halfway through my workout.
Yeah, they talk so much, and it's dangerous. You can't go talk to them because they're such bros. They're great people, but don't go talk to them because they'll waste your entire workout.
15-minute breaks between sets. I'm like, Jesus Christ. How do you
they all got beards. Like this? Their beards are down here, and they're just walking around looking for someone to talk to. And you're like, I'm not the guy.
Although, oh, man, I get, now that I'm a YouTube celebrity, man, it's just constant getting stopped at the gym. I try not to be a dick, but I get people come up all the time. They're like, "Hey, dude, are you that guy I saw on YouTube?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." What are we talking about?
I saw a guy the other day wearing like a full ninja suit, and I was so confused. I almost wanted I was like, I need to get a picture with this guy. I was like, who is he?
I just need to eat more protein powder and fart really, really bad.
Yes.
Gas them out of there. I'll have dudes that'll like follow me from machine to machine. They'll just keep talking. I'll do my set and they'll just keep following me around.
Oh, that's bad. See, and you were like, "Oh, Nick, you got to get better at your YouTube." And I'm like, "Well, now, do I want to?" Because
no, there you go. It's good. I consider it a blessing. The people actually want to hear what I want to have to say.
That's true. Yeah, you spend so much time preaching to clients, and now people genuinely want to hear what you have to say. So it's I suppose that's nice. Yeah,
it's an interesting dynamic. I went to a bodybuilding show the other weekend, and it was weird, man. Like, people were stopping and taking pictures with me and shit. It's so weird, man.
There you go. That's big time.
My daughter gets weirded out by it too. We were at dinner. We went to Texas Roadhouse the other night, and this guy, the waiter, comes up to me and he's like, "Are you Big Paul?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Big Paul." And he's like, and he like goes and grabs one of the other dudes. Like, "We watch your YouTube channel all the time."
That's pretty cool. It's honestly, like you said, it's a blessing. It's, I bet. How is it staying humble at that point? That's the question. Like, do you find that to be kind of a struggle?
I'm not an ego person anyway, man. I'm really an introvert. I don't like attention.
Oh, no.
I hide my house.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
absolutely. It's honestly, it was a challenge for me to even do the YouTube thing, man. I'm not a very outgoing person. I'm very introverted. That's why I do bodybuilding, man. It's the ultimate introvert sport.
Yeah, it really is. You're absolutely correct. And
put your headphones on, do your workout.
Yeah. And you got to stay in those specific zones. Yeah, no, unless you have a spotter, but even if you do, they're going to talk too much. Like, it's hard to find a spotter that's as committed as you are, who's going to do the work with you. And you'll stop and talk, and they'll be like, "No," and they'll stop you.
My old training partner, he was deaf. It was perfect.
Yeah, there you go. Did you speak sign language with him?
No, he could lip read.
No, that works.
But he would just strap up and work out.
He was yoked though, wasn't he? He was just super strong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. PhD exercise physiologist, a smart guy.
Yeah. It's so funny when someone, just how the body works is so interesting. When you're deprived of one sense, it makes everything else come like full circle. So their sight, their smell. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, in this guy's case, he's got intellect. He has strength. Yeah. It's like the body tries to make up for what it's lacking. And that kind of brings us back to the semaglutide real quick. That one thing I wanted to hit on, which is the most important part about the semaglutide that I don't think people understand. People from your channel probably do, but the fact is, like, if you're taking appetite,
don't overestimate the people from my channel.
Well, we're going to learn today. So if you are taking a GLP-1 agonist and you are literally crushing your appetite into the ground and you lose all this weight like that, right? The pendulum swings both ways. It's called homeostasis. The body is very good at it. If you swing it up in that direction of maximum weight loss and appetite suppression, the minute you come off of that drug, you will, one, be starving, and two, you are going to, I mean, I think the statistics right now is 65% of people who have gone through an Ozempic treatment have actually regained the majority of their weight back once stopping.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, all you have to do is do a contest prep and know how that works.
Oh, easily. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Coming out of a contest prep and just being an idiot, man, eating food. We've all done that before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. My last show, I don't know what it was. I think I like reverted back to my childhood because our family, we traveled a lot. And, divorced parents had some stuff like that. So we were going back and forth to dad and mom and everything like that. So we're on the road a lot. But for some reason, I was like such in a depleted, like just zombie state that I wanted gas station food. That's all I wanted. I don't know what my problem was. So I got like
gas station food's awesome.
Oh man, I got the brownies, I got like all the crap, and I'm like tasting a bite of it, and I just tasted chemicals, and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like just chemicals. But it was delicious. Maybe so sick, but it was so good. I didn't even care.
Well, on the contest prep thing, like post show, what is your strategy post show? I have my take on it, and it's not what most people do. I handle it a lot different than what most people do, and I've had some pretty good success. But I want to hear how you handle post show.
I am a proponent of reverse dieting for sure. I think that the body is super sensitive. I think that if you overdo it, you're going to put on a lot more adipose tissue than you want. So I am definitely like, hey, again, get your mate tea, get whatever you need to survive this. But the next like 3 to 4 weeks are going to be pretty rough. And then I'm going to continue to dig them out of their hole. And it's just, that's typically how I handle it because I've seen the best results off that and in myself and with my clients. They tend to stay a lot leaner. It's harder with clients though, because again, they're so hungry and they're just like, okay, coach, whatever, unless they're really serious about bodybuilding, they're kind of like, I'm going to eat a pizza. So
I've started to take a different approach. And I used to do the reverse dieting, but I've gone the opposite way. I've just had the experience that people are just going to binge and eat anyway. It doesn't matter what you tell them. Even the most disciplined person in the world sometimes fucks up. And I kind of have this thought process of that you're the most insulin sensitive, most anabolic. Your myostatin's going to be low after a show, things like that. So what I've done, I don't pull people off all the gear after the show. I'll drop the toxic shit like Tren in the orals. I'll leave the fat burners in for probably like 3 weeks. I'll just taper off of them. I don't pull people off. I see a lot of coaches that'll just pull everybody off of gear completely right after the show to clean out.
Oof. Even test.
I've seen a lot of guys pull, like, it's kind of the old school philosophy. And then you just have a complete hormonal crash and an insulin rebound. Sorry, I keep burping up this Coke Zero.
No, you're fine. You're
fine. So I've been playing around with getting aggressive with the food after the show, but clean food and keeping people satiated. And so I'll push the carbs up high and keep the fats low. And I found that when I do that, as long as you keep the fats low and push the carbs up and keep people on some anabolics, that you get this crazy, almost super compensation for it. You only have so long you can do it. You got about a 4 to 6 week window you can do it, and then you got to pull back. Right. So I actually give people food out of the show, and then we'll pull back like 4 to 6 weeks later and go into a cruise and a health phase. And then usually what I've seen is people will rebound back up to their pre-show weight, but at a much, much leaner body fat set point than where they started off. And I've had some really good luck rebounding people that way. And I know it's unconventional. It's not what most people do. I'd say the most common way is to do a reverse diet. That's what I see probably 95% of coaches do. But it's a different approach. And it's honestly one I learned from Justin. Justin does that approach as well.
Yeah, he's very smart. And like, as you were thinking about that, and as you were talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, low fats. I mean, it's kind of a no brainer if you really think about it. It's like, you're going to spike the insulin. Body's extremely insulin sensitive. You keep the PEDs in, you're keeping, a higher protein intake in, and you get them in there and you get them training. So you're going to mitigate some of those injury components, because sometimes they'll go a little bit too hard during a reverse diet and they're still so depleted that they get hurt. So if you just reintroduce the nutrients, you keep the fat low. I mean,
Yep.
it makes sense. The dots connect. So I'm like, it's not even that unorthodox. It's actually pretty smart.
Well, when you think about it, usually, I mean, after a show, you're going to be probably most likely glycogen depleted.
Oh, for sure.
And the foods that people crave after show tend to be sugary carbohydrate foods. So I feel like a lot of times you can satiate people with eating with eating a high carb approach after a show and keep the fats low. I don't know if you saw it or not. I think it was, who the hell posted it? Was it maybe it was Lane Norton. I don't know. It was Eric Helms, one of those guys. I don't remember, but they did an isotope study where they actually tracked what macronutrients were stored as body fat, and only in the study, only 3% of ingested carbohydrates were actually converted into stored adipose tissue. It was an insignificant amount. Almost all the stored adipose tissue was saturated fats.
That's very interesting. Yeah, and again, it makes sense why. It's just like, typically I'm a lower fat guy myself. I started off in the whole ketogenic realm, and I was like, oh, we're going to go straight keto. That's the way we're going to do it. And then after not only self-experimentation, but also dealing with clients and seeing what happened, like, it is almost nigh impossible to put on any sort of muscle while you are carbohydrate depleted. Like, plain and simple.
You think about it. What is the primary fuel source that a muscle runs off of?
Yeah, it's carbs. And then,
glucose.
What's the actual catalyst for muscle protein synthesis too? People don't know that.
Yeah, insulin, carbohydrates. Yeah.
That's what starts it. That's what builds muscle, and it takes carbs to start it. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and if you actually look at muscle, people get over concerned with protein. So I mean, like, if you think about a muscle composition, so a pound of muscle, what is it? There's 2.2 pounds in a kilo. So a pound of muscle is like I don't know what, 450 grams or something like that. If you want to do the math on it, and we know, if you extrapolate that like 70% of the muscle is water, and which is generally just stored glycogen. It's water and carbohydrates. So really only, out of that, like 120 grams of actual protein structures in a pound of muscle. It's not a lot.
Right.
The majority of it is carbohydrates and water.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And I hope everyone heard that. It's water. Drink more water. Here, I'm going to drink. See? It's 2.5 liters. Or Coke Zero.
Coke Zero.
Or Coke Zero. There you go. Whatever. Hey, whatever you got to do.
Oh man, I got my glass of water here too. I alternate. I'm terrible with the Coke Zeros, dude. I've cut down to one a day. Yeah. It's been hard, man.
Do you just inject it now?
Yeah.
Right.
300 cc needle.
There you go. Just send it.
Big.
I mean, you're not serious unless you're going to inject it. That's what I'm saying. Like, you're not ready,
Oh my God, Coke Zeros are what keep me going on contest. That and pickles and Coke Zeros on contest.
Pickles
prep.
are good. Yeah, I'm celery. Like, I will go on my little 10-minute walks just to keep the activity up. Because you know how it gets. You just turn into a potato. You're like, I don't want to move. So you get your food, and you're like, okay, I have enough energy to, like, at least for me, it's like I get maybe an hour of energy, and then I'm dead. So I'm like, I use that hour of energy to go on a quick walk, and then I'm just munching celery. Like, I look like a freaking rabbit, man. I just got I'm that guy in the neighborhood, this big old rip dude with like a big old handful of celery. And I'm sure people get a kick out of it. Like,
oh God, I used to give people a little bit of nut butter in their diets. And I would tell them just to put it on the celery, to give it a little more substance. But I just can't trust people with nut butter anymore, man.
No, you definitely
they lose their minds, man. They got face first
into
into the peanut butter on a diet.
because their body's craving the fat because they're
Yeah.
so depleted and they're losing so much fat. And that's what people don't realize either, is it's like, well, why would you crave fat? Well, your body's shredding it off, homeostasis. It's like, give me that back. So you start I'm really bad with fats. My body wants them so bad. It's hilarious.
I mean, who doesn't?
Mhm.
I mean, you look at how calorically dense too, like something like peanut butter is too. I think a tablespoon's like what 130 calories or some
Yeah,
shit.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
And if you aren't measuring it, man, it's more like you're probably eating like 4 or 5 tablespoons.
Right now, I
or
get
the whole
20,
jar.
Yeah, I get 20 grams of peanut butter twice a day. And I'm not going to lie, every time I fish it out, it's like 22, 23. And I'm like, I'm in the off season though. So I'm like, just slap it in there. And I'm like,
oh, I use nut butters in the off season. I use nut butters. I can be trusted with them. But like every time I got a client that's not losing weight, I'm like, man, something ain't adding up here, man. This math ain't adding up.
It's so funny because they don't think you know either. Like I literally just like scare the daylights out of my clients. I'm like, I've been doing this long enough. I know when you're cheating. And they're like, what? No, I know when you're cheating. I will literally look at your physique and I'll know. And they're like,
I can always, I forget who it was a long time ago. One of my old coaches said, like, the legs are a dead giveaway. You can see the water that people hold in their legs.
Yeah.
And you can look,
100%.
you can see that there was separation last week and there's none this week. And like somebody fucked up on their diet.
Mm-hmm. And then like the back too, I've noticed people tend to hold a lot of water, especially on gear. They're like, their whole backs are just like, it went from being a roadmap to being all fogged over. And you're like, what'd you do? And they're like, what? And I'm like, what'd you do? Where's the honey bun? Where are you hiding it?
I mean, I can do the math. If I have somebody's calories, I know like to a certain point where I really can't go any lower and they're not losing weight. It's like, I've got a slow metabolism. I'm like, no, I don't know. Let's go through everything one by one. Yeah. And then you find out they're not measuring the nut butter. You find out that they're dumping barbecue sauce on everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say a famous one that I've run into multiple times is like, Coach, I'm only eating chicken. And I'm like, what kind of chicken?
Right.
They're like, well, chicken thighs. And I'm like, no. You know how much fat
I told you?
You know how much fat's in a chicken thigh?
Have you ever had someone who you grill and you just get after them and you're like, hey, you know what? Like, how bad do you want this? And you just reach in and pull their heart out and just show it to them, right? And then all of a sudden that next week they just start losing weight again. And you're like, oh. And like they just from that point on, they're just going down and you're like, oh wow, that's interesting. That's what should have been happened 3 weeks ago.
You're more of a motivator than me. I don't chase people. I'm like,
I fire them up.
I'm one of these people. I'm like, if you can't do the work, I don't got time for you.
Yeah, that's the military though. Like I just have that thing where I'm like, I don't accept, if you're coming to work with me, I'm not going to accept failure unless you blatantly quit. So like it's not even a chasing thing. Like if they're, I fire clients, don't get me wrong. I'm actually about to fire one this week. But it's just one of those things where it's
hear that?
Like, yes.
Coach Crayne's clients. Are you next?
One of them's going to get fired. You can guess who it is. They probably already know that. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's just something. I'm like, I just don't want to give up on them because chances are it's something that's in their head. It's some sort of motivational thing. There's some sort of, it's a block, like, so if I can bust through that barrier and get them to a better standpoint where they can achieve better things in their life as well, I think it's worth the stress on my behalf and the emotional investment on my behalf to pull them out of wherever they're at, because you'd be surprised how many people thank you after that, and they're like, Coach,
that's true.
You saved me, blah, blah, blah. So
I just get irritated by people that don't work hard.
Oh, for sure. Well, of course, when you work hard, it's hard to listen to them because you're like, that's an excuse. Like, it's always excuses, it's like they always have objections.
I'm like, motherfucker, I run 3 businesses. I'm a single parent. I got 2 kids. Right. I get to the gym 6 days a week. I get all my meals in. I'm like, what are you doing, man?
I know. And I do. And man, I
work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I know. And bodybuilding, once you're in it, it's a full-time freaking job.
Yeah.
Like, it's a job. Like, you got to train, you got to eat, you got to cook, you got to do everything. And then you got your business on the side, and then you have your job, and then you have your kids. And then it's like finding a work-life balance in the middle of that. And it's like, God, I've been doing that for years. So when you have a client that comes in and they're like, it's always the first week, oh, I don't know if I could do all this food. What? What you don't know? And like at that point in time, I empathize with you 100%. It's like in the back of my head where I'm just like, cut their head off. I'm like, get rid of them. You know, it's like, you just said you can't, go away. Like, get off my doorstep.
I don't know. I just get here. I'm more the silent, irritated person. I'm like, all right, dude.
Right.
Or I'll go at them out. Usually what I'll do is tell them everything I've got going on and try to guilt them into it. I'm like
yeah.
I get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, the military guys are my favorite because I coach a lot of, you know, obviously being prior service, I coach a lot of military dudes. And I was a workhorse back then. I don't know what I was. Something was just, I was like possessed by something. I don't even know. You know, my wife will even tell you that I was insane. But I was able to do the competitions and everything whilst being in. And these guys come up and they're like, oh, I can't even do this. And I just pitch it to it. The same exact thing. I was like, well, when I was in, I did this. I was like, what's your excuse? And then they just sit there and mope for like a week. And then you get an email back like, I'm sorry. It's fun. It's fun. I get a kick out of it.
You can be in the military and do well. I mean, what's that guy? There's a guy that works out of my gym. Charjo, I think he just got third in the Olympia this year in men's physique.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually, like active and retired military guys.
He's a colonel, I think. And,
wow.
You know, so
that's crazy.
Yeah,
but he'd be terrifying too, being that guy. Like he's up on the Olympia stage and he's a colonel, active duty.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is a colonel. I'm gonna find him, but he is
terrifying.
He's a cool, inspiring guy. I don't know if you, let me see if I can, here he is. Charlton Grant, that's who he is.
Charlton Grant.
I'll pull him up on my screen here.
Yeah, that'll be good.
But he's a pretty inspiring dude.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious. You said he's still active duty?
Yeah, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure he just got promoted to a colonel.
Is he reserves? Do we know that? Or is he?
No, I think he's at the Pentagon, I think.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, that's crazy.
I could be completely wrong about this, but let's see here. Yeah, this is him. Fourth. He got fourth at the Olympia this year.
Yeah, he's pretty solid. I mean, he's got great genes too, though. Look at him.
You should see him. You should see him in the off season. He gets pretty fluffy.
Does he really?
Yeah.
That's still not too bad. But the question is too, a lot of things that I've noticed with the military guys too, is it makes sense that he's physique because all the running, they cannot build legs. They just can't because they're running constantly. So
yeah, running nukes your legs.
Oh, it destroys them. And the Stairmaster too. What are your thoughts on the Stairmaster? Let me ask you that.
I do not use the Stairmaster for prep.
I do not either. Nope. I don't touch it.
Yep, here he is.
There we go. Sweet. He looks so tired in that photo.
Yeah, he looks very tired in that photo. Well, you know how it goes, man.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks good. He's got great genetics too. He really does. Like really full muscle belly, great shoulders. Yeah, but I mean, it's still not bad. He's still relatively lean.
Yeah, I mean, this is water.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy, man.
He's like, look at my transformation. Oh, that's social media. Every time. Yeah, that's crazy. Look at you see how deep his abs are?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah. Good on him.
You would know the insignias. I don't know crap about the military.
Yeah, if that's golden, I'm pretty sure he's a major.
I believe he just got recently promoted to colonel.
Because a lieutenant colonel is typically black, is what theirs looks like. So a major is gold. And then colonel, like Fulbert, is an actual eagle. Yeah, he's a major. It's gold.
Yeah. Okay.
That's still up there, though. That's still up there.
Yeah, here's the off season.
Yeah. Good for him. At least he's not afraid to get fluffy.
That's another one. Yeah. No, I mean, I have to get a little fluffy in the off season. A lot of it's just water.
Yeah, for sure.
You can tell. I mean, you've been coaching for a while, man. You can tell the difference between when people are holding water and when they
Oh yeah.
when they're fat.
Yeah, right.
There's a difference.
Yeah. Do you like checking photos, or do you like checking videos?
I have people do front, side, and rear relaxed. Honestly, I think not. I'm leaning more towards the videos. You can tell better from the videos, I think.
Yeah, you can,
Because
because you were talking about fat and telling the difference. It's like when they're stepping into their position and their ass is just going jiggling like that. You're like, You're like, yeah, you're starting to get there, buddy. Like you can physically tell on their backs. Their backs start to ripple a little bit when they
yeah, and
turn around, and you're like,
they're also not in there putting the Instagram filters and shit on it,
oh
and
yeah,
changing the light around and taking 50 pictures.
I know.
I get like I have one client that was sending me pictures of him in like all these weird lighting situations, and I'm like, dude, come on, man. I'm trying to help you. I can't help you when you do that.
Right. He turns his, what is it? Oh man, what's the one that makes you just grainy? Oh, which one is that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Oh, there's a
about.
filter. There's a specific one that you put it in. It's like I think it's sharpness or something like that. But it makes you just
Yes.
look like you're just made of gravel. Like it's ridiculous. Like
I'm like, dude, I can't tell shit from this. Don't do this.
you can just take that filter and you look like John Meadows. You know.
Oh man. Um some people are just it can't be helped.
Yeah, it's all right though.
So what's
That's what
your
they hire you for. And go ahead.
yeah, that's what they hire it for. We
Yep.
so we didn't really talk about PEDs that much. I have sort of a general approach that I have with people when they're it's fat loss season with cutting, but it's definitely different for competitors versus somebody who's just a regular dude. But what is your approach with PEDs with people?
I am very thumbprint, right? Meaning every individual is going to be completely different. I like to
Yeah,
look at blood work. I like to see exactly what they can and cannot handle. I'm a very start slow and progress kind of guy, right?
yeah, me
Hey,
too.
you're going to be on a baseline of tests regardless. Even when you were like, hey, some of these guys will come off, they'll come off show and they'll take their test off. I'm like, oh, no, absolutely not. You're going to stay on your test regardless. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? It's harmless. Like testosterone is so safe. It's so clinically backed. It's a phenomenal compound. Stay on it. You'll be fine. But as far as like usage in general, it's like, okay, what does the client need? Typically, I'm more of the DHT derivative guy.
hmm
I don't really like to mess around with the trends, everything like that, just because again, I actually saw Justin Harris talking about this the other day about how he doesn't like to do things that he hasn't done himself, right?
yep.
And he doesn't like to push people onto stuff that he hasn't experienced himself. And I am not a proponent for Tren. I know how powerful it is. I know how incredible it can be. I have kids, and I'm like, the deleterious effects don't go. So like 19 Nors in me, I typically, unless they have joint issues, they need a little bit of DECA or something like that. That's when I'm like, okay, experiment with that and see what happens. But for the most part, yeah, I could do test primo and maybe a little bit of DECA in the off season, and I'm pretty conservative unless they truly need it. Unless they're a guy that's 6'5" and they're huge and they need larger dosages. But a lot of people overestimate how much they actually need. They
Yep.
just take gram upon gram upon gram, and it's like, dude, again, sleep, your training, your food. If you get those dialed in first, you can make a cake. You can make a beautiful tasting cake just like that. But if you want the buttercream frosting on it, that's when you can add the right kind of PEDs. Don't just start slapping Tren on everything. Like I knew guys that like their first cycle was testing Tren, and I'm like, why did you do that? Like like why? Because now they've set up a baseline, and none of these other androgens are really going to have that same effect. They're not going to experience the gains, if you will, from those other androgens, because they've already kind of blown out the receptors with using one of the most anabolic compounds you could take. So
It's funny how we all just sort of independently come to the same conclusion. I did a podcast. I don't know if you know who Vigorous Steve is.
oh, of course. Oh,
Yeah,
Steve's great.
Steve and I did a podcast last week, and we were talking about this very topic, and he and I both were like, test primo, a little bit of
They're
GH,
safe. Yeah.
little bit of GH. I mean, well, you think about it. I in the off season I'll run test primo GH, and then I'll sprinkle in some insulin here and there.
Yeah.
you know, and insulin's not for everybody. If you're just a guy trying to get in shape, you shouldn't be fucking with insulin.
No.
But you know, really like test Primo and GH. If you can't get in shape on that, I don't know what to tell you.
Right, exactly. And GH,
And
especially where you're getting it too, that's another thing. It's like where are these people sourcing their things from? That's another really important thing. It's like, well, you know, a great coach, I can acquire this from who? You know,
yeah,
where? You know, because they're like, I'll get GH. Well, how much is it? Oh, I can get it for $100. I'm like, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Like, don't even touch it. I don't know what that is. It's probably just backwater, man. You know?
well, they have test kits now you can get where you can actually test it. I haven't really, honestly, I haven't really run that into that much fake GH. A lot of the UGL Chinese stuff now is pretty good.
Yeah, it'll raise you up there pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. As I've seen, I mean, a lot of it's pretty decent. But yeah, just the off season is and I tend to lean more towards the DHT derivatives as well. If it's somebody brand new that's never, it's for me, it's just test. I just start them off a little bit of test.
Yeah, like
for
why
my like
they're yeah.
And then Masteron is an alternative if you can't afford Primo or Source Real Primo. That's usually what I tell people. I sort of see Masteron as poor man's Primo.
What I don't like about Masteron is the effect it has on your HDL, though, because I've seen guys come with like lower HDL values because Masteron. So
yeah, Masteron. A lot that's happens with all the DHT derivatives. I've seen some dudes running Anavar that come to me with single digit HDL. Yeah, no shit, man. People are like Anavar's safe, and I'm like, is it? I mean, it's
still.
It's still an oral. It is less liver toxic. That is true. It's probably the safest oral, but it's still very rough on your HDL. I've seen some pretty crappy HDL numbers with Anavar.
And the thing is, too, go ahead.
I was to say, but everything, it's a tool in the toolbox. There is a time and place for it.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I think that orals, especially like towards the end of contest prep, I think are a good idea. Just because like they have that tendency to really give you that dense, hard look. They just do, you know. Yeah. And on top of that, they're easy. There's no injections. People are a little bit more excited about them. And plus, Anavar itself, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like if you keep everything really conservative and you're really clean about how you're doing things, Anavar can give you a pretty good energy boost. Like it's one of those things where it's like, whoop, you're wide awake. Like I'm so productive. I get so many chores done. Like I'll be in the middle of prep and I'll be mowing my lawn and they're like, what's wrong with you? And it's like,
well, all the DHT derivatives have a bit of neural drive. Like Anavar is sort of, to me, it's I don't know if you follow my podcast with Dr. Todd, but Dr. Todd calls Anadrol dirty Anavar. they're really sort of similar, but they're both very well known for neural drive. So you get really good neural drive from Anavar. Actually, I've heard of powerlifters running high dose Anavar for peaking for powerlifting needs.
Yeah, it's going to be safer. The Anadrol is so funny. Like, man, if you get good Anadrol, you can put on like 30 pounds pretty easily, and it's going to be lean and dense and crazy. But like, I swear, I can't run it for longer than a month before I start feeling like just a blood.
Oh no, yeah, I don't.
And I'm just like,
that was some shit I did when I was young. I don't touch it at all anymore.
No, not anymore. I agree. Just the effects it has. It's not for longevity.
The big issue I have with it, the liver is pretty fucking resilient. You can beat the crap out of your liver and it really can bounce back from a lot. But the issue that I have with Anadrol is it just absolutely nukes my stomach. I just lose all my appetite. My stomach gets upset.
I didn't have that. Yeah. I didn't have that at all.
No. Man, that's the issue I have with Anadrol.
I knew that was a problem, but I'm constantly starving, you know, except for like you said with the Metformin, that works really well. That keeps me pretty tapered off and a good spot. But like, man, before that, I was voracious, man. I ate everything.
So no Tren, not even on contest prep.
I don't like it. You know, like if a client really wants to, it's not me to hold them back. Okay. But in my mind, it's like, you know, maybe later on when it's like, okay, you're really looking at, you're starting to tiptoe into the pros. I think that my wife would probably try to tear my head off if I ever do. So, because she is vehemently opposed to it. So she does
man.
not. One of those
Man, for me,
things.
Tren is a necessary evil in contest prep. You just can't get that same look without it, man.
Yeah.
I run really low doses of it, and I usually microdose. So
Right.
I'll take daily doses. Not some people laugh at me when I say this, but I'll take 20 milligrams a day. It's just like
Yeah.
a baby dose of it, and I'll run it at the end of contest prep only. I do not use it in the off season. I'll run it the last 6-8 weeks of contest prep, and at 20 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
Microdosing, I don't get all the crazy side effects with it. It doesn't affect my
Yep.
mood. I will get a little bit of the sleep disruption, and I definitely get hot. It seems to be, it's a very unique drug. It seems to be a thermic uncoupler, where it seems to impair mitochondrial function and actually causes some bit of thermic uncoupling like DMT does.
Right. Which would explain the fat loss.
DMP, sorry, not DMT.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Right.
We're not going on this.
I knew what you were saying.
Wonderland.
I knew what you were saying.
DNP.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't seem to have all the nasty side effects when you run low doses of it, and you can get like 85% of the effect out of it. But nothing transforms my physique, man. It's like instantly within 2 weeks, I'm harder when I run it.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of microdosing pretty much everything. You know, like it's just one of those things where like you're going to have steadier serum levels of everything. So it's, you know, like a lot of guys are like, well, I don't want to do this many shots. And I'm like, look, it's not even that bad if you're using a freaking, 27 gauge and you just stick yourself every day, right? You just small little doses and you're good to go. So I totally see that logic for sure.
Have you ever looked at there's a website called Steroid Plotter where you can actually map out. I like show this to everybody.
No, let's check it out.
Yeah, I'll show it to you. So if you want to see the effects of microdosing, I will. Let me show this to you. This is a really cool little tool that I share with my clients. It's called Steroid Plotter. So let's take a look at testosterone, for example, and we'll go with Ananthe, which seems to be what everybody runs.
Why?
It's just what most of the UGIs sell.
Right.
Let's look at a 16-week run of it, and everybody loves doing twice-a-week shots for whatever.
Yeah,
let's just say
you're still going to have dips.
Look at this.
There you go. Dun, da, da. Yeah, I love how it shows the drop off too. That's beautiful. Now everyone can see what happens when you stop. You know,
so you can see.
Yeah, why would you do that to yourself?
You can see that. So if you go to, let's just go to 75 milligrams once a day, and look at the difference.
Dun, da, da, da. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Or these stupid TRT doctors that are telling people, let's say Cypionate. I've seen some of these doctors telling people to take a shot every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I mean, if you want horrible mood swings in gyno, go ahead. But then they sell more, AIs too. That's how they sell their AIs. Look at that.
This shit.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Now tell me how good you feel when you do that.
Yeah, you don't need an AI on a regular basis. Everyone's always like, because I used to work for a telemedicine clinic, and they're like, "What about my AI?" And I'm like, "You don't. If you do this properly, you don't need this." They're like, "Well, I need it. Well, why I need it?" And it's like, there's a perfect example right there on screen on the difference between microdosing and if you did that, right? Like you need an AI because of those peaks and troughs, and that is just straight hormonal fluctuation. Like that's not. I don't think people think about it quite as much because they're like, well, that's my serum levels. It's like, no, that is actually hormonal fluctuation in your body. You're talking about, your body's going into puberty and now it's not. And now it is, now it's not. Now it is, now it's not. It's like these hormones are extremely powerful. They're extremely powerful. And to do that to your body is just terrible. And that's where the side effects are coming from. That's where the mood swings are coming from. That's where the roid rage comes from. That's where all this stuff comes from.
Yep.
Because of that,
Yeah, Yep,
It's incredible.
dosing frequency matters. And a lot of people don't think about it. And also, that's another advantage of running the Primobolan with the testosterone that people don't think about, is that Primobolan actually makes your testosterone work better. So,
Yep. Same with
Primobolan,
Anavar. Same with
Primobolan's going to lower aromatase conversion, so you have less aromatase conversion. You don't even need an AI when you run Primobolan with testosterone, from what I've seen, and it's going to lower SHBG, which there's, you can debate whether that's a good or a bad thing, but the end result is you're going to have higher free testosterone.
Correct.
So
yes,
your
which is what you want in
testosterone,
this context.
your testosterone is going to work better when you stack it with a DHT derived compound, and Primobolan to me seems to be the best out of the DHT
Correct.
derived
Well, because
compounds.
people ask, they're like, is it safe? Like, why is it so safe? And I'm like, you realize that it was developed for like underdeveloped babies, right? That's where Primobolan came from. So instead of the NICU, back in the day, they would just give babies Primo. Like it was like that's what it was made for. Anavar was burn victims. You know what I mean? Like there is so many, like these things are medicines, and people are like, well, what about the gains? And I'm like, well, you had to look at where it came from, look at what it was used for, and then make a sound decision on whether or not that's something you want to put into your body. So that's why I'm like, hey, Primo is so safe. Why not?
You want to see something something wild is Equipoise. People talk about running Equipoise and how fucking long it takes for it to peak. So you're probably at about 90% of peak dose at day 48.
Wow.
So it takes almost 2 months for it to fully peak. We are talking about day 75. And then to clear, this is why I laugh. Like I heard a podcast with Jay Cutler talking about how he would cycle on and off, and Equipoise was his chosen compound for the off season, and then he would come off for 8 weeks and take breaks. And I'm like, dude, you weren't really off.
No, it was still there.
So like if he stopped, you were day at 111 here, and let's say he came off for 8 weeks, it is still present 111. We'll see 60 days later, which would be right around here. It's still present, even though it's not at high doses, but it doesn't completely clear. Let's see, we get below 1%. All right, let's see what the max dose. I'm sorry, it was 54 milligrams present. You get down to 1 at day 191, so it takes 80 days.
Right. Yeah, it's insane. Like it is absolutely insane. And it's, what that one specifically does to your red blood cell count, your hemoglobin and everything like that is just insane as well. It's like, your red blood cell volume as a whole. Like people are like, oh, what about Equipoise? And I'm like, I mean, do you want to be donating blood? Like if you like phlebotomies, go ahead.
I don't get high hematocrit, but it is the only one that made my hematocrit stupid high.
That's interesting. See? Yeah.
Yeah, I got up to like 56, 57 on running an Equipoise cycle, and I usually don't get over 50, even running 1.5 grams of test and Primo combined. I don't get that high.
No, absolutely. It's just one of those things where it's like it's outdated, right? If you can run, why don't you just run Masteron? Like that's basically his big brother.
But it's interesting. People don't consider these dosing curves. So for example, if you were going to run a cycle with testosterone and Equipoise, you'd probably want to keep your testosterone in place until you got like somewhere around here, and then drop it so they both lower at the same time.
Yeah, but again, I'm still a proponent of like, hey, if you're gonna mess with these things in general, you need a baseline of test period.
Oh
yeah. People are like, well, I'm gonna do my PCTs, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna post cycle, I'm gonna and I'm like, you're just asking for trouble. Like you really
a lot
are.
of times the PCT drugs are worse anyway. There's an interesting study, if you want to look it up sometime. It's called the Harlem study, HAARLEM, and they did a study on PCT. They took a group of steroid users. It was I think there was 100 people in the study, and they had 50 that did PCT and 50 that did not, and their hormone levels were exactly the same after 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
So it literally did nothing.
Yeah. So it's like, one, you're wasting money. Two, it's like you're still, again, peaks and troughs. You
hormonal yo-yo.
Yeah, they are so powerful that it's like, okay, I'm just going to stop. And it's like, well, you just castrated yourself. Good luck. Watch what happens. You know?
Yeah, and then you spend 2/3 of your next cycle gaining back everything you lost.
Yeah, you just lost. Yeah. It's like just because again, testosterone is incredibly safe. It's where it needs to be, right? It has its clinical data. It's well documented. It's like if you're looking at the anabolics, it's like the creatine of the anabolic world. You know what I mean? Like it's just set in stone. It's great. There's no harm in running a replacement dose. There's really not.
And to be honest with you, I've had people run Test and Primo at fairly high doses, and I've seen almost like perfect blood work.
Yeah, it's insane.
With Test and Primo, but you start throwing other stuff in, then things start getting skewed.
Correct. I agree. Yeah, because
I don't see any skewing from HGH either. HGH does not seem to skew blood work at all, other than maybe some insulin sensitivity issues.
Yeah, IGF-1, and then maybe a little bit of elevated glucose, but other than that, you're just what were you guys talking about? Growing hands. Oh my goodness, that was another first attachment podcast I just saw the other day. That was hilarious. About what was it? How many, what were they saying that IUs? They said pretty much like if you're going to run like 20 IUs GH, you can get your hands to grow if you're really self-conscious about it. Like, I guess.
No joke. The most I've ever taken, well, I've gone up to 10 before, but I've always run like somewhere between 6 and 8. I bought this fancy band, this platinum band from my Apple Watch, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. Right. And I hadn't worn it in a while. I went to put it on. Like a month or so ago, I couldn't get it over my wrist.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Over my hand, it wouldn't fit over my hand, so my hand has definitely grown.
Is that any better, or is it stuck like that now?
Oh no, I think it's a permanent growth of my hand.
Oh, for sure.
it's not water retention, man.
Yeah, right. I was about to say. I was like,
take a look at some of these pro bodybuilder hands. Sometimes you ever looked at Flex Lewis's hands?
I have not. No.
He looks like fucking Wreck-It Ralph, man.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Go to a pro bodybuilding show sometime, and
I've been, yeah,
and shake some of these dudes' hands. There's a good. Here we go.
Yeah. Look
at dude's hands.
I know.
look! Like his hand is like twice as wide as his wrist. That is not a normal hand.
Though. Look at those forearms. Good on you, Flex. Nice job.
That is what you call a growth hormone hand.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is insane. I mean, you can't just count him out though. You can't just be like, what if he just has freaky genetics? Like, what if he's always had huge hands?
I don't know.
We'll have to get Flex. We'll have to call Flex and ask.
Every pro bodybuilder I've seen has those hands, man.
Yeah, and the feet, the feet that grow, they keep on growing shoe sizes and whatnot.
Yeah, I think Dave Palumbo, he's like 5'10". He said he wears a size 16 shoe.
Oh, well, he's also been a proponent of like insulin and GH for so long, and that's kind of his shtick. So,
oh man, I love insulin and GH. I know people poo poo all over insulin, but man, you want to grow.
Bioidentical. It's bioidentical if you do it correctly.
They are bioidentical hormones.
You do it correctly, and it just is what it is. Like GH is great. Like I'm never gonna, especially working at a telemedicine clinic where you're prescribing people GH for therapeutic means. Like it's one of those things where it's an incredible hormone. It's beautiful, man. It like helps them with their skin, with their mood, with their longevity, with everything. So obviously in a bodybuilding context, it's a little bit different. But like, I mean, I don't see any problem with like 3 to 4 up to 5 IUs. Like, I don't see a problem with that at all.
Dude, I'm 50 years old and I don't have any wrinkles on my face.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You're just going to look young forever. It's the fountain of youth for sure.
I mean, I don't, I'm not saying I'm youthful by any means, but I don't think I look like your average 50-year-old.
So you're being hard on yourself. You're being hard. You don't even look 50. You're saying you're 50? I had no idea you were 50.
Yeah.
Nope. Can't tell.
49 to be exact. 49 and a half.
There you go.
But almost.
There you go. That's the secret. It's GH15, guys. He was right all along.
Well, I remember Dr. Todd, when I was talking to him, I'm like, man, should I take GH or not? And he's like, do you want to be 35 forever? I'm like, yeah, I want to be 35 forever. He's like, then take GH.
Right. That's incredible.
All right, dude, I got to wrap this up, man. This is fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh, of course. No, this is great.
Now that we had established that Flex Lewis has giant Wreck-It Ralph hands.
I'm still blown away by the forearms. Like, it's just like, look at the forearms on him.
Yeah, he's
look at that thing. That's nuts, man.
Well, he's got ridiculous arms.
Oh, I know.
He's also like 5'0".
Right. Yes. So the lengths are much shorter, and people talk to me about that all the time. They're like, "Well, you're 6'5", and I'm like, "Dude, life is rough."
I mean, when you're when you're a big dude, it's harder to fill out the frame. You just don't have that same look. There's a reason why every bodybuilder's 5'5".
Yeah, 100%, 100%. All righty, Paul. Well, I'll let you go.
Man.
I won't keep you too much longer.
Yep, man. If people want to get in contact with you, how do they do so?
So you can come find me on Instagram at Coach Crane 27, or you can come to our website at www.coachcrane.com. We are an official LLC, so don't be scared. We don't bite. And other than that, YouTube, because Paul's been sitting here bugging me about it. So I'm gonna have to get on YouTube here shortly. So we do have a channel, but it's just bare bones. It's a lot of walkthrough videos on exercise tutorials. So we'll be spinning that up a lot better.
When you get a channel, let me know. I'll come on. I'll be your guest.
There we go. There we go.
We can talk about how to grow GH hands.
There we go. Beautiful.
And be 35 forever.
Yes, correct. We already figured out the secret. It's 15 IUs.
15 IUs of GH.
15 IUs.
You won't be able to feel your hands, but you'll look young.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Thank you for watching. Take care.
All right, guys. Adios.
For coaching or consultations, head over to www.anabolicbodybuilding.com to book your spot today. I can help you with optimizing hormones, fat loss, muscle gain, physique, athletic performance, nutrition, and health. For more information, shoot me an email at bigp3rd@gmail.com.